Do you want to share a couple of things that you wish you would have done differently
Oh,
or
goodness.
that you
Yeah.
feel like didn't go quite as you had planned when you first
Yes.
got into podcasting?
I think one of the biggest things is not realizing the impact of collaborating with other podcasters and
Mm.
utilizing other hosts' audiences.
Welcome to Unplugged, the tech podcast for digital entrepreneurs. I am one of your hosts, Brooke, the founder of the Sober Biz Collective.
Hey, podcasters. My name's Nate Kelly, best-selling author and founder of Podcast Revolution Studios. If you're looking for tech, tools, and tips on how to utilize podcasting for your business, you're in the right spot. Let's get unplugged.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about who we are.
Yeah, let's do it. And how we got here and why we're, exactly.
So my name is Brooke. I am the founder of the Sober Biz Collective, and I have been a techie media nerd since about grade 7. I got sent to the Women in Technology conference at IBM when I was like 12, 13 years old. And they taught me how to build a website and do some like simple coding. And I loved it. And I started like making websites for my mom's business. And I started just playing around with things and making like weird little web pages and stuff. And, you know, nothing fancy, but it was awesome. And I learned how to like, for grade 7. Yeah. In the 90s, it was like 1999. So the technology wasn't what it is today. Things were a lot harder. Now it's like everything is drag and drop. Everything I learned is obsolete. Like there's so many easy,
so much more
tools now to help you
back
create.
then, right?
Yes. Yeah. You had to learn a different language in order to do anything online, basically. So yeah, so I fell in love with it then. I learned how to like pirate things because, you know, I came from a low income household
Yes.
and we didn't have the money to afford Adobe Suites and all these things. But I got really clever and learned how to, you know, get those things for free. Hopefully there's a statute of limitations on the legality of that.
Listen, we were brought up on Napster and LimeWire.
Exactly. So I learned how to create things on Adobe and just kind of taught myself. This is before YouTube even. So it was really just trial and error. But I think if you have a passion for it, if you really want to do something, you can learn how to do it, especially now more than ever. It's easier to get into these things and to get started and to learn how to do them. And yeah, I was just hyper fixated on tech for a really long time. And I would make like home movies with my brothers, and they would be very close to studio production.
Yes.
With $100 digital camera that I had to plug in to charge for 10 minutes so that I could take 10 minutes of video and then plug it in, dump it into my computer and take another 10 minutes. But man, it was just so fun. And so I've always been into it. I've always loved it. And now the world has just like, I think it was almost designed for me, like with TikTok and podcasting and all these things. Like, this is all the stuff I used to do when I was little. I used to have fake little radio shows at home with like one of those old recorders and little fake news shows and all the things I used to do when I was a kid. Now it's just like, oh, you can have a job doing this. You can make a YouTube channel. You can make a podcast. And yeah, I got really into that and started a podcast and got to meet some of the most incredible people. And I just loved it. I loved it as a form of networking, especially through the pandemic when we weren't getting together in person. Like I found I really got to know people through a podcast, right? Through interviewing them. And some of those people are like really good friends of mine today. And, you know, we help each other out, support each other. Once you get to know somebody's story, it's like so impossible not to fall in love with them, you know?
Yes.
And that's actually, you know, we've met through all this like tech stuff and, you know, stayed connected. And now we're collaborating on this because we both have a big passion for, you know, creating and technology and getting stories out there, right?
It's so crazy, really, how similar our stories are, because part of this, like how I have really come full circle to be able to and privileged enough to be doing this full time as a career. And, you know, part of the story of my story that I tell is playing talk show in my bedroom when I was 6, 7, 8 years old with like my mom's hairbrush and
Yes.
watching like Phil Donahue and Sally Jesse and these sort of like 90s talk show icons. And I wasn't like playing football or like playing school or other things that kids did. I was playing talk show and coming up with
Yes.
interview questions and pretending to interview celebrities and, getting the exclusive interview. These were things that I was sort of obsessed with at a very young age. And God, let's talk about manifestation now, to be able to sit behind a microphone and ask people questions about themselves. And, you and I both share this kind of duality of sobriety and recovery and this
Mhm.
tech and digital aspect of our lives and our careers. So, the other show is very deep and vulnerable and emotional, and is where I found my initial success with podcasting.
Mhm.
And, it really started for me more so as really kind of more informal vlog style videos on YouTube. During the
Mm.
pandemic, I found myself a little bored and lonely and not able to go to 12-step meetings during the pandemic because we were on lockdown, and looking for a way to be able to connect with other addicts and fill that void from not
Mhm.
seeing my people every day. So I started making these recovery videos and eventually got sick of, hearing my own story time after time, day after day, and just being a huge fan of podcasting, really knew that I would be good at it, not to toot my own horn, but just mentioning what I had about my youth and kind of always having this passion and this nerdy side of like audio, video, and wanting to explore that side of myself. Started to educate myself on podcasting and looking for the right equipment and understanding
Mhm.
editing and kind of the art of storytelling through podcasting. And when I launched the Sobriety Diaries, very quickly kind of shot to uh, the top 3% globally and was on, iTunes top 10 lists and Spotify charts. So, I started to realize that I had something here, and started to develop a
Mhm.
framework to help others to achieve the same, and met you along the way. And we really have, um, we complement each other so well on our strengths and what we can sort of help each other with and learn from one another. And, one day a few months ago, I texted and, had been thinking about it for a while, and really just wanted to kind of put our heads together and create a platform for other digital entrepreneurs and discussing
Mhm.
podcast tech and content creation and trending sort of podcast tips and all of the above. And I'm elated that here we are today with Unplugged. Today feels very full circle and very like kind of next step in the chapter of podcasting and each of our businesses and sort of, future projects together. Super excited.
I think one of the most valuable things that I consume online is like what people feel like they did wrong when they got started.
Mm.
Do you want to share a couple things that you wish you would have done differently
Oh,
or
goodness.
that you
Yeah.
feel like didn't go quite as you had planned when you first
Yes.
got into podcasting?
I think one of the biggest things is not realizing the impact of collaborating with other podcasters and
Mm.
utilizing other hosts' audiences. Of course, there's a bit of competition within podcasting, and, they sort of group shows together within genres and themes. That's for ease of listening and that so listeners can find shows. But I think a huge growth tactic and marketing tactic is collaborating with similar shows and
Mm.
sharing audiences. Listen, if you're a podcast listener, you're a podcast listener, and you're sort of
Yeah.
always looking for similar shows, shows that you connect with, shows that resonate with you, and
Mhm.
sort of appearing on other shows, exchanging interviews, or collaborating with similar hosts and similar shows is a surefire way to increase your own listenership. And that's not something that I
Mhm.
realized in the beginning, but it's something that is core that I teach and walk through all of my clients as far as a marketing tactic and a growth tactic. So if that's something that you are prepared to do and that you understand kind of from the jump, and kind of bake into your marketing plan, it's going to serve you greatly from the get-go. So I think that's one of the biggest ones. I think understanding that there are so many options as far as podcasts these days, and audio is king when it comes to
Mhm.
podcasting. So you don't need to break the bank, but you need to make at least a small investment to make sure that your audio quality is up to par, or else people are,
Mhm.
10 seconds and they're going to scroll on if the audio isn't quality. And that goes for videos as well. If the audio quality on a video is not up to par, people are more likely to scroll on. So I
Yeah,
think collaboration with other shows and audio quality, two pillars of podcasting.
absolutely. 100%. I feel that just getting started is so important because I noticed for me when I first started showing up, especially on video podcasting, the anxiety I had at first.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh, it's so intense. And I was so focused on making sure I had like the top equipment and
Yeah.
everything looked really good and my
Yeah.
background was all nice and all that kind of stuff that I could control,
Right.
that when I sat down to get in front of a mic, I was like frozen.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how nice the mic is if you can't speak into it.
Yes.
Um, so I think practicing is huge. And like you said, if you can get on other people's show and get some practice, like find out what your style is, just talk to people, get interviewed by people and see what are the favorite interviews you did. How did you feel with them? How did you feel leaving that interview? What do you want to do with your guests? That kind of stuff. Like, I feel like experience is so much more valuable than we give it credit for. Like a lot of people want knowledge and we go and we binge all these things on TikTok and YouTube and want to figure out how to do our best at this and get so caught up in having to know everything, but that actually doing it is going to feel so different and going to be so different. And we need to, I
100%.
feel like putting more emphasis on just doing it, getting out there, putting yourself out there, because it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable at first. You're probably going to suck at it at first, but that's okay.
100%.
Like it's great actually. Like I remember making videos in 2010, 2011, whenever YouTube first came out, and I got all excited and I made like this stupid video, how to look skinny on webcam. And it went
That's
viral. It got like
genius.
30,000 views. Yeah.
Yes.
It got like 30,000 views back then. And it's so bad, but it was funny and whatever. It was me, and the quality sucked. I had no microphone. Like it was just me sitting in my living room with ripped pants on. Like it was so horrible. But it was one of the most viral things I ever made, right?
I love it.
And it's so cool. And so just putting yourself out there, getting out there, like the 15 videos I made after that flopped completely. Nobody cared who I was after that. It was probably more of an SEO thing. Like people are actually searching them,
Right.
you know?
Exactly.
But all those like videos that I sucked at and that were awkward and uncomfortable and I cringe watching them today. Now when I'm on camera, I feel so much more comfortable, and it took getting through those awkward stages, right? But it doesn't happen if you just sit there learning things. You actually have to get out and do it.
Yes. You will come to learn. You're just going to have to get used to me referencing Pat Flynn probably every day. But he says in one of his courses that you are never going to be like 100% ready. And nobody is for anything that they start that's new to them. So
Mhm.
literally just turn the camera on, start, You will get more comfortable as you go. You will learn new things about the process, about yourself. To your point, I think there needs to be certainly a level of preparation and
Mhm.
a level of understanding a theme, a topic, what you will be discussing. But just getting those reps under your belt, it's like a football player that goes to practice every day. You literally just need to continue to do it. You will get better and you'll continue to learn and uh, look skinny on a webcam. I saw this meme about TikTok and it's like, listen, TikTok is for strangers on the internet, not for my family and friends to see
Yes,
my TikTok
please.
videos. And that is 100% true.
I agree. I know I was like, I have these moments when I'm, trying to be professional or applying for something for a client. I'm like, should I private my TikTok until
Yes.
after I work with this client?
Yes.
Just in case they find me. Um, but I don't know. I've learned over the last few years to just really embrace it. Like if you don't like what I'm putting out there, it's me. And so maybe we're not a good fit and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a stop for people too.
Yeah. I mean, it's a two-sided coin. It's a two, whatever. There are two sides to every story. It's a partnership, right? I think, your content, your sort of way that you coach has to be compatible with them just as
Mhm.
much as it is the other way around,
100%.
which is a beautiful thing about entrepreneurship.
I mean, we could probably do a whole episode on this, so I don't want to dive too much into it,
Yeah.
but what do you think is the importance of utilizing social media when it comes to podcasting? Because it's not getting your podcast seen in the sea of podcasts is probably one of the hardest things about starting out, especially if you don't have a huge following on social media already or a community that you can just kind of plant your podcast
Right.
into and showcase to and launch to. Um, And I know that you've had a huge success through Reels on Instagram and growing an account. Did you find that had a large impact in growing your podcast audience, or how did that correlate?
It did. Yeah. It definitely helped with the initial traction and sort of visibility of the show when we launched. And, you know, uh, I think obviously there has to be a social media component
Mm,
to the show and to your marketing approach to the show. And there are a couple things really that I focus on with clients. And one is brand recognition. So
mm,
there needs to be a cohesive brand portfolio or
mm,
sort of branding package, if you will. So, it's brand colors, fonts, it's a format or look of the show that when people are
mhm.
scrolling, they can sort of recognize your show or your brand and sticking to and, making sure that all of your content is cohesive and representative of you and the show and the content that you are putting out there for people. So a cohesive brand is important.
Mhm.
I think that capitalizing on trends, whether it's trending sounds, trending videos, TikTok trends, and things that will increase the virality of your reels or TikToks. So there's kind of a two-prong approach, really, I think, when it comes to podcasting on social media. One would be getting your face and your brand to new viewers or new listeners.
Mhm.
And a great way to do that is jumping on trends and trying to increase the views of your account as a
Yeah.
whole. And the other side would be taking important moments of the show and creating either audiograms or teaser clips of the show so that we are bringing in new eyes with a
Yeah.
viral aspect and then having quality content that teases your show or shines a light on the theme or topic of your show when we do get those new eyes on your account.
Like a trailer for your episode.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, highlighting the best parts of the show and
Yeah.
having quality content when we bring those new eyes.
Have I ever told you about my ass method for social media?
No, but I love it already.
Okay, asses and social media tend to go good together. Just kidding.
Yeah.
So it's called attract, serve, and sell.
Yeah.
So creating things that attract your audience, like you were saying, these trending sounds, trending like dances, whatever it is, make it applicable to your niche or your podcast or whatever you're doing. But utilizing those are huge for attracting new eyeballs into your brand, into your podcast, your social media. And then serving that audience. So people who are already there, we want to serve them. We want to give them something to make them stick around, to make them become like those loyal followers, fans even, that will like gobble up everything that you do. You want to make sure you're providing some value to them, whether that's education, whether that's entertainment, comedy. I love following funny creators like religiously. Like I'll watch everything they do because they just bring so much joy into my day, and that's a way to serve, right? And then your sell. So if you're running a business, the sell piece is actually very important. You need to have offers on your social media for those loyal followers. It's not going to be your viral stuff. It's not going to get a lot of views, but the people that you've served and have warmed up and have made like excited to follow you and loyal fans are going to buy those things that you put out there. And just make sure that you're serving the audience you have, right? Otherwise,
what's
the sales
point?
post? Yeah,
what
exactly.
Are we doing here?
And so the sales post can be, if you don't have a business and your podcast is just you and your friends talking, eventually you're going to want to have affiliate links that relate to your audience or brands that you work with and that kind of stuff. So that's going to be your sell posting.
I think the first S in ass can, with podcasting, there is this community building opportunity that we have, and establishing that trust when you are serving your community is so important. And through podcasting, building that trust and building that community is a whole lot easier than, well, I don't know if easier is the right word, but maybe easier than it is using a 7-second video on TikTok or a 30-second reel on Instagram. There is a greater opportunity to establish that trust and build that community through serving them than there is strictly with social media, for sure.
Absolutely. And people really get to know you on podcasts, your personality. Like you get those parasocial relationships happening, right? Where I listen to podcasts and I feel like I know them. Yeah. Like these are my friends. They hang out with me every day when I drop my kids off at school. I know them. I do feel that way. Like I feel like I could reach out to some of them and I don't know, even though they would never respond to me and there's like, a million people probably feeling the same way. It just feels that way. You get really close to people when you hear so much about their lives and everything. And I don't know. I love it. I love it. I love it. I know we can talk all day about this stuff and we probably need to save some for other episodes. But one thing we wanted to do is at the end of every episode, do some tech talk and just talk about, podcasting technology, what's worth the investment, what you don't need to worry about, and some different levels of like, if you're just getting started and you don't have a big budget, here's something you can try versus if you're ready to go all in, we recommend this. And obviously, when it comes to podcasting, the number one thing you think of is the microphone.
The microphone. Brooke, I've got a lot to say about the tech, specifically our microphones. I think now might be a good time to pause and transition into part 2. Our premiere episode is 2 parts. Make sure to check out part 2 of the episode for all of our tech talk, our microphone recommendations, and more for new podcasters. Thanks so much for hanging out today. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube for all of our video content at Unplugged Tech Pod.
And join us in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/unpluggedpodcast. Also, make sure to throw us a 5-star review if you are finding this content valuable for you and your digital business. We accept all forms of reviews, Apple Podcast, Spotify follows, YouTube, telling your grandmother about us.
And make sure to share the episode with one person in your life who may find it valuable. And we'll see you next time on Unplugged.
I think it's good enough, and we're just going to keep getting better.